You are listening to the Vet Podcast, presented by veterinarian Dr. Brian Gregor from New Zealand and featuring an international team of animal health professionals. Join us as we discuss pet health issues from around the world.
It is often the case that something is right under your nose and you don't even notice it. This couldn't be more true in more ways than one than it is for cats' whiskers. Whiskers are one of the defining traits of a cat, but they do a lot more than just make a cat look cute. They are an extremely well-developed sensory apparatus. They truly are just the cat's whiskers. And many of you may have heard that old folk song, The Cat Came Back. Can cats actually find their way home? If you ask a child to draw a picture of a cat, the one thing you can guarantee is that it will be drawn with whiskers. It is virtually impossible to visualize a cat without whiskers, just as it is impossible to think of an elephant without a trunk. Whiskers are much more than just a cat fashion statement though. They are an amazingly efficient sensory apparatus. At first glance, whiskers, or vibrissae as they are correctly known, really just look like large hairs, but this is pretty well where the similarity ends. If you look closely, the first thing you may notice is that the whiskers are thicker and stiffer than normal hairs. The hairs themselves contain no nerves, but you will notice that the base of the hairs sit in an area that almost appears swollen. This consists of modified hair follicles that contain a capsule of blood and a large number of nerve endings. These nerve endings have been found to stimulate an area of the brain that gives an almost three-dimensional view of the surroundings. The hairs also go into the skin about 3 times further than normal hairs. Adding to the thickness of the skin at the base of the whiskers are highly developed sheaths of muscles. These give the whiskers the ability to move forward and back, an ability that normal hairs don't have. If you look closely at your cat, you will notice not only whiskers at the side of the mouth, but also on the cheeks, above the eyelids, and on the wrists of the forelegs. These different areas of whiskers have the ability to move independently. These factors all give the whiskers the ability to be highly sensitive organs, not just with the ability to feel physical objects, but also able to detect slight changes in air movement. So, what do cats use their whiskers for? As an inquisitive youngster, I remember asking my mum exactly what we are discussing here. Why do cats have whiskers? Her answer to me was that the whiskers are as wide as the widest part of the cat's body and let him know whether or not he can fit through a hole. Now it turns out that her answer was more or less correct. Cat whiskers in most breeds are about the width of the widest part of the body, and yes, one of their functions is exactly as Mum suggested. Cats use their whiskers for hunting, especially at night time. When a cat cannot see its prey, it surrounds the prey with its whiskers, almost like a basket, and in doing so can establish the exact position and the orientation of its prey. There is also some evidence that at nights cats can negotiate objects by detecting slight air movements around the objects without actually touching them. It is also suggested that cats use their whiskers for communication. Again, take a close look at your cat's whiskers. Whiskers pulled tightly back on the face indicate an angry cat. When they are pointing slightly forward and down from the face, the cat is relaxed and happy, and when hunting or feeling aggressive, the whiskers point forward and are tense. Another piece of advice I can remember my mother giving me was not to cut a cat's whiskers, because if I did, they would not grow back again. I'm not sure whether she caught me in the act after the event or whether she just had an inkling. Anyway, Mum had the right sentiment, but unfortunately was factually incorrect. Although you should never cut a cat's whiskers off purposefully, this would be similar to having a blindfold placed over your eyes. Whiskers grow back just as normal hairs do. Now, a practical consideration relating to the cat's whiskers is the size of your cat's feeding bowl. Make sure you supply your cat with a good wide bowl. And one final point about cat's whiskers. Finding a cat's whisker is supposed to bring good luck, just as it is finding a four-leaf clover. I will let you be the judge of that.
Now old Mr. Johnson had troubles of his own. He had a yellow cat who wouldn't leave his home. He tried and he tried to give the cat away. He gave it to a man going far, far
I will lay my
away.
cards on the table right at the start. I have found very little hard scientific evidence to explain the observation that cats can find their way home over large distances. There is an awful lot of anecdotal evidence and a number of articles claiming evidence suggests, but with no reference to the actual scientific papers which support the claim. As the scientists amongst you will be quick to point out, anecdotal evidence does not prove a hypothesis. It does not, however, disprove it either. There has been research done, and here I'm as guilty as the writers I have just criticised for not citing the references. This research has examined how a number of animals navigate. There are a number of different methods put up. Salmon apparently navigate by the smell of the water. Birds and bees navigate by the stars, sun, moon, and it is a widely held belief that homing pigeons navigate by using magnetic fields. And bats navigate using a combination of the rising sun and magnetic fields, as well as their well-documented sonar abilities. So what about cats? I have come across some research from the US, unfortunately again not backed up by references, where they took a group of cats, sedated them so they couldn't remember the orientation by smell, sound or sight, drove them in a circuitous route around a large maze, and once they had recovered from the sedation, let them explore the maze. More often than not, research claims, the cats found the exit closest to home. Here are some things that we do know. It is in an animal's advantage to know where they are from a straight life and death perspective. Geomagnetic fields have been found in the ground, which appear to be orientated in distinct patterns. There is an area of the brain called the hippocampus. This area is considered to store, for the want of better words, mental maps of sight, smell, and possibly electromagnetic information. Now, it has been suggested that cats find their way home using exactly the same path as they used to go away. It has also been observed that attaching a magnet to a cat may disrupt its ability to find its way home. Now, interestingly, there have been tiny magnetic particles of metal found in the lower legs of cats. It has been hypothesized, but not proved as far as I can find out, that these can detect electromagnetic fields. Okay, there is a lot of circumstantial evidence here supporting the homing ability of cats, and possibly, just possibly suggesting a mechanism by which this could occur. The assumption has been made that it involves a particular geomagnetic field orientation, and mechanisms in the cat that support this have been possibly found. It is also most likely that other facts, such as position of the sun, stars and moon, smell and sound, are also involved. There are two things to get out of this. The first is that the homing ability of cats probably does exist, and also there needs to be much more research into how it occurs. If you have a story of a cat, or for that matter a dog, who has found their way home, we would love to hear about it.
You have been listening to the Vet Podcast. You can find us on Facebook, the Vet Podcast app in Play Store, iTunes, Google Play, or bookmark us in your favourite podcast player. To contact us, message through Facebook or email vetpodcast@gmail.com.